So, welcome to another episode of Reading Between the Words. And today we have Arlene with us. Arlene, how are you doing?
I am great. Lovely to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a work-life harmony and leadership coach. I'm also an attorney, still an attorney in Colorado. I've had a solo practice in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and a partnership in Longmont, Colorado. That was sold several years ago. And now I am a leadership harmony coach for women and also a transformational mentor for men and women. And I'm working on getting out there and doing speaking and workshops. That's sort of my next step in life. And so that's what I do.
That's awesome. That's really great. So, tell us about your book. What we want to know first, just show us the book, tell us the title, and maybe just a little bit about what it is. It's called Illusions.
It's called Illusions, and it's the Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach. And
Okay.
we're having a hard time so you all can see it. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can look at it. But it is Illusions. It's by Richard Bach. You can find it on Amazon. He is an amazing author. He's written so many really great books. They're like really easy reads, but they go really, really deep. And Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. It's like happens like in the 50s or the 60s. And basically this guy has this little hopper plane and he can land it anywhere. And he doesn't really want to be too connected with people, and he'll take people on, like, a 3-minute plane ride, and they'll pay him $10. And that's how he makes his money, and he doesn't have to have a home. He just camps out wherever he goes. And by chance, he finds like a really enlightened person who can guide him and to sort of take him to the next step in his life. And it's just a really cool book because it's not the way someone would think that a messiah would be. And he was just an ordinary guy who had sort of extraordinary skills and abilities to sort of help him to wake up to more of his best self. And I don't know, I find Richard Bach really fun and inspiring because there's not a lot of big words. It doesn't go on and on. It's not a thick book at all. It's a pretty thin book. And you go on a journey with them no matter where you go.
That's awesome. So, for our listeners, normally it's a book that you have written yourself, but
Oh,
this is okay. This is okay because we like books. That's why we're here.
well,
But
I'm not
I'd
an author.
really like to
Sorry.
hear why you like this book and why you like this author. And you've kind of alluded to that, but tell us some more about why you particularly like this author and this book.
Well, I've been on like a really big spiritual journey myself since my son was about 3. I got divorced and he developed pretty severe ADHD. And I'm like, I got to find something to help him because I just don't want to stick him on drugs. And I
Yeah.
went on this big spiritual healing journey, learned all these different kinds of healing modalities in an effort to help him, not be, if he just lived in the outdoors and he got school outside and could run around more and not be stuck in school the way maybe it's more adapted to girls and boys, he would have probably been fine. So it says a little bit about our world, but that's when I really started on my spiritual journey. And I've been in all kinds of mentoring and coaching programs. And it just sort of really floats my boat to be more heart-based in what I do, because that's what spirituality really means to me. And so Richard Bach is like that too. He's not an out there kind of woo-woo kind of spiritual journey kind of guy. He just sort of tells spiritual stories to people, light up people's hearts, and maybe light the way to a new way of being that's not so in your mind,
Yeah.
more in your heart, with all of his books. And that's why I've always really gravitated towards him. And the stories are kind of unique and interesting. This feels like he's just got sort of some downpouring channeling to send a message to the world. And I just find his books fun and inspiring without being, too heavy. I don't know. There's a really cool comedian out there. His name is Nate Garbazzi, and he does this funny kind of bit with books, and he goes, I have all these books, but they have all these words in here and I don't know what to do with them. It's like these big, huge books. And he's one of these people that gets really overwhelmed with words. And I can be that way too. I have a little bit of that ADD stuff too. So something that I can really feel and like go along with the story and be inspired by, those are the kind of books that I love to read.
Oh, that sounds really great. That I like those books too. It's nice to do it. So as you're reading this book, what are the some of the highlights in it that really, I guess, that you connected with and it made you go, ah,
Yeah. Well, there is this so anyway, they ended up like flying from place to place together and they'd land their planes and then they a few people would find them and then the whole town would find them and everyone would be coming out for these little 3 minute flights on their little hopper planes with propellers and everything. And there was this one time that this grandfather came with his granddaughter and maybe his granddaughter was 8 and she was terrified of heights. And so he brought it so that she would go on the little hopper plane. But she was like, no, I'm not going. And so Richard Bach, the guy who was playing in the book, he took the grandfather on this flight and they flew over to where the guy's farm was and they waved at his wife. But meantime, the guy that was the Messiah, unquote unquote, was back there sitting and just having this conversation with this young girl. And somehow, with how he shared with her and how he listened to her, he got her so she was like really excited about going up in the plane. And
wow.
she was a second flight for this other guy who was like learning from the Messiah. And he took her up there and she loved it. And she got off the plane and she was jumping up and down with her grandfather. And she's going, I know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to be a pilot. And so
Oh,
it was like a really heartfelt moment. And basically all he did, this, Messiah, was hold this big, huge, open, judgment-free, loving space so that she could sort of talk about her fears. And he helped her just to let them go. And then he talked about his love of flying and all the amazing things he got to do as a pilot. And the light bulb of her life went off and she sort of found her purpose.
ah,
And it was just like it wasn't nearly as many words as I talk about here, but you could just feel the experience. And the other guy who was the learning from the Messiah was up on the plane with the grandfather going, what the heck is going on? And who is this girl now that she was totally different when they landed the plane. And so it kind of made the grandfather's day too, because he had always wanted his granddaughter to overcome her fear of heights.
yeah,
And in the magical moment, she did. And so her whole life was changed by just being in the loving, listening presence of this man.
that is awesome. I like that. You know, it just reminds me of my dad who was afraid of heights and a close friend who flew thought, he was a young man. He thought, well, I'll just show him. And so he asked him if he wanted to go up in the plane and Dad said yes, which kind of surprised us, but he went up there. But instead of caring about how dad is perceiving the world, this guy thought he would be funny and do some loops and some spirals and up and down. I mean, the worst thing you could have possibly done for someone who's afraid of heights. And my dad was so scared when he got out of the plane. He didn't really talk to anybody, but you could just see this look on his face. I'd never seen anything like that before. And it was horrible. What could have been a beautiful experience, like for this young girl, just go up, take it easy, show him a few things, and talk about flying, talk about the experience of being up there and whatever it is, that you talk about people with, and then come down, and he would have been more willing to do something again. But that was the one and only time he ever flew. Now, my dad's brother was a pilot, and he was just a gung-ho pilot. You talk about someone with ADHD, he was just, the textbook example of someone like that. And my dad never flew with him. But it's interesting. I love that this person found a way to talk to this young girl and that she was able to see the beauty of there. I love to fly. I've jumped out of airplanes. Done that a few times. but I really love to fly. I love being up there. I love seeing the world. I love seeing how the whole earth comes together. You fly over Grand Canyon, you know, up like at 10,000 feet or however high it is, and you see the earth from a very different perspective than you would if you were just in a small plane like what he would be flying. Um, so the book brings a lot of good things. One, it's like, yes, you can get over your fears if they're presented in a way that you can understand, one, why you're afraid, and two, the benefits you get when you're no longer afraid. But here this pilot was gentle, took him to some places that were familiar. Hi, Grandma, how are you down there? You know, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Where the, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say what I really like about how they handle that whole situation is that that's what I learned to do as a coach. Because
Yeah.
one of the because it's the presence we hold so that people can feel heard and understood, and that's what we're taught to do, hold this big judgment-free, unconditionally loving space, because most people don't ever get that in their lives. And then you feel heard and seen and able to talk about whatever's on your mind so that you can move through to your goals or let go of whatever's not working for you. And so it was a different venue of these little propeller planes, but just really lovely, heart-based, enlightened men that were, it wasn't just about the planes. It was about
Yeah,
the experience that they were providing, to other people. And
right.
the young master was learning from the older master, um, how he could be better at it and to really just love and accept himself as he was with the skills that he had, and not, sort of view himself as some kind of weirdo oddball that just really didn't like to hang out with, quote, normal people that much. So
Yeah,
I just really found it a really cool journey.
that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. Um, it's, I also like that there's a grown-up man willing to learn to to better himself. And as entrepreneurs, you know, and authors, we have to do that. We keep learning. We keep learning so that we can get our craft better. We keep learning so we know how to share our ideas and our books with other people. And you never stop learning. When I was young, I was told by someone who was my age now, but I was pretty young then, and they told me to never stop learning because they said, when you stop learning, that's when you start dying. And I thought, wow, that just really affected me. I didn't want to do that. I always wanted to learn. So, and I was always curious about everything. You know, we've got these great minds that are creative, that are imaginative, that are curious, and we need to feed that and nourish it so that it keeps growing and we can pass that on as our legacy.
Yeah. And I've lived that, because I
Yeah.
got while I still had my second law firm and I was a partner in it in Colorado, I got a diploma in coaching and mentoring. I got a diploma in transformational holistic counseling. I became a certified meditation facilitator. And people always ask me, how does that go with being an attorney? And I'm like, I never say this. It's like, why not? I was really interested. I had some really amazing women friends who had gotten certified as a coach and as a counselor, and I knew that their schools that they were starting were going to be heart based, which is really important to me, and not just
Right. Right.
mental blah 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 thing. And the same with the meditation. I had a friend who, had been meditating and gone to school for it for years, and I knew that that was her area of expertise. And so people always ask me, how does that possibly go with being an attorney? And I'm like, wow, don't put me, I never said this, don't put me in a box. I mean,
Yes,
it took
no,
a
but
while.
that's it. Yeah.
I had to go back to school and to do that kind of stuff because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this again. But it's to have had the courage to do that, or just to say, oh,
Yes.
what's going to happen? I'm going to do it anyway, has been like the best thing I ever did. And I'm so grateful that I didn't listen to people that said, well, you're an attorney. What the heck are you doing?
Yeah. It's like, oh, but I'm not just an attorney. You know,
Right.
it's like I'm not just a mom. I'm a woman. I'm a wife. I'm, you know, now I'm a grandmother. I'm a friend, you know, and how many had other careers too. And it's like, and I still like to do other stuff. You know, it's when That's funny you talk about being scared about going back to college. I went back and got my degree because I just didn't finish it when I first got out of high school. I just went, did some college, then went straight into a career. And when I went back to school, it's like I'm going to school with kids that are my kids' age. And it's like that's okay, but once they started asking me about things that I like to do and what I do. And I go, well, I've gone skydiving, I drive a motorcycle, go scuba diving, and, mention all these things. And they go, oh, you're like that grandma on that cartoon that looks sweet and innocent. And then in the background, she's out skydiving and flying and all of this. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's more to life than sitting home and knitting. And I don't knit, but I've crocheted. I sew. Yeah, we like to keep busy. We've got to keep our minds active, no matter what age we are. It's really tough to see a lot of kids that just sit and play video games when they could be outside exploring, creating things on their own. I just saw, in fact, I had a post on my LinkedIn page that talks, oh, it's on my Facebook page that talks about this young boy who came up with a new way of making solar work to where it looks like a tree. And so it's not these big, huge panels and stuff that are out there. And it's like, how creative and ingenious is that? And it looks attractive. Yeah, I judged the science competition this year locally here in Austin. It was a regional event. So amazing. These great minds that are coming up with all these things, and they're not even, some weren't out of junior high yet. They were still, seventh grade, eighth grade, and others were getting ready to get out of high school. But to be able to have that and to continue, it was just so marvelous to see. So there's a lot that are out there using their minds.
There's some amazing kids being born,
Yeah.
especially in the music industry. And I find that so heartwarming and so inspiring and so hopeful. Yes, all that kind of stuff just really lights me up because I look at kids, or they're kids to me, they're teenagers and middle schoolers, and
Yeah.
they're walking with their heads down, typing with their thumbs. And I'm like, oh my God. I do text and probably on my cell phone sometimes too much, but I don't live with it, and I don't usually have it dinging to let me know every time someone's posted something because it would drive me crazy. So I really
Yeah.
think there's some way that we can sort of break that free and find a different way for young people.
I agree. I was listening to the radio yesterday because we were in town and they were talking about how there's this concert venue that will not let you bring your cell phone. When you
Woohoo!
go, you are going to go and pay attention to the artists that are there. And you absolutely cannot go in if you have your cell phone. It's not allowed. And so that was really great. So as people start to do this, the other thing yesterday is um, I forgot my cell phone at home. So I missed all these calls. I text message. I didn't have my Google Maps to go find this place I needed to go to. I looked on my husband's phone real quick to see where it was, but it's an unfamiliar part of town that I've only been to once. And it's like, okay, so how do I get there? So I knew about where it was. It was pretty easy. And I missed a turn. I wasn't sure where to go. And then I happened to see a sign, and it's like, for some reason, that sign's familiar. I'm going to turn that way. And that was the right street sign to turn, and there it was. But but it was kind of like, wow, this is really weird. Because I usually had street maps in my car. I don't even know if anybody sells street maps anymore. And towns are changing so fast. I don't know if the maps can keep up with them to be printing them all the time.
Well, I have to say that my mother was directionally impaired. She
Yes.
passed on to my son. I am so incredibly grateful for Google Maps because
Oh yeah.
east, west, north, south, don't talk to me like that. It's not my strength. And I guess I could learn how to read it, but it's just never really at the top of my in So I
Yeah.
am really grateful for Google Maps just to be able to get wherever I need to go. I just keep
Yes.
myself that.
Well, I figured if nothing else, I could pull over to a store and talk to somebody there. And I know someone's going to pull out their phone and look for me. So it would be easy to find.
Good
But, oh,
for you.
well, even though you didn't write this book, I'm really glad you brought it to our attention. It sounds really fabulous. It's a new author again. So tell us the name of the book and who the author is again.
Oh, it's Illusions. Whoops, I'm trying to. I'll do it in front of my face.
There you
Illusions by
go.
Richard Bach. Any book by Richard Bach, I think, is awesome, and you can get them on
Okay.
Amazon. They're not expensive. They're in paperback, and
Yeah,
I
we could
just find
probably even look at thrift books and places like that for it too.
them so inspiring, and you don't have to
Yeah.
spend a lot of time. It's just like you read for 15 minutes before you go to bed, and you have a busy
Yeah,
day, and you're like, oh, this is something inspirational to take into the sleep state,
that's
and
right.
yeah, and so if that inspires you, that's great. He's written quite a few books, and I didn't
Oh,
realize
that's
it was just
lovely.
for people that wrote books. I'm like, this
That's
sounds
okay.
like a
That's
different.
all right. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But we also learned about you, which I really love. So tell us how we can get a hold of you for those who want to get in contact with you.
Well, thank you. So, my business is Jewel Consultancy, like the diamond, Jewel, jewelconsultancy.com. You can find that on what the internet. And my full name is Arlene. The middle name's Cohen, Cohen Miller. If you Google that, you'll find all the social media sites that I'm on. And
Awesome.
I always get people my cell phone. I'm not afraid of that. It's
Okay.
729362634. And if you refer to this podcast, I'll be happy to text with you and answer any questions that you have about coaching or mentoring or Richard Bach. And there you go.
All right. That's wonderful. Thank you, Arlene, for being here and for introducing us to a new author and to yourself. And we'll see you, our audience, next time on Reading Between the Words.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Reading Between the Words.